I'm Jacob Courtwright, and this is The Locker Room. Hello, and welcome into The Locker Room, episode number 6. First off, I want to thank you, the fan, the supporter. You have skyrocketed this podcast way up into the top of the charts because of my last 2 specials. The amount of love and support that you all have shown me, the amount of messages I have gotten, it means the world to me. And without you, this podcast would not be growing as it is. So thank you all so much for that. On today's episode, we are going to be going over the NBA playoff format. I will give you my top 10 NBA players playing today. And this episode is dedicated to George Floyd and his family. May our thoughts and prayers be with you. We need to, as individuals, break the barrier of skin color being a problem and fight racism together hand in hand. What happened was disgusting. We, as real, good Americans, will never stand for it. We need to stop looking at skin color as an issue and unite together. We are all one giant family in the world. We need to act like it. So let's fight this racism together. George Floyd, this episode is for you, and here we go. The NBA is back, finally. Adam Silver released. It is voted on. The players voted on it. The NBA teams have voted on it, and GMs have voted on it. It is released today. The NBA will be returning by the end of July. We will start with 8 exhibition games, and then we will go straight into the playoffs. What we're going to do is we're going to run down through the format. We're going to run down what teams are in right now. We're going to run down kind of all the details of it all. And then they've proposed a lot of different ideas for this format. So we're going to kind of walk through those, my likes and dislikes with that. And then we're going to get to my top NBA players of today's game. Let's go ahead and start off with what Adam Silver posted today. So Adam Silver came out and said that the NBA will start towards the end of July and it will probably run through the middle of October. He also released the amount of teams that are going to Orlando. We have 22 teams that will be playing in Orlando. And he released it in a different format. So instead of bringing an even amount from the East and West, he put the teams voted on and the players voted on, any team that has a shot to get into the playoffs has 8 games to kind of work their way into the playoffs. So it's more like a play-in. It's run more like the NCAA tournament, which is going to bring a whole lot more eyes, I think, to the NBA. This is the way it should have been done the whole time. Because how many senseless Eastern Conference and Western Conference games do we watch and sit there just bored out of our minds? This brings it into an NCAA March Madness type of vibe. We are going to get to see basically the top 22 teams intermix conferences as opposed to the West playing the West, the East playing the East, and then the winner of the East and West come together and face in the championship. It's going to be completely intermixed, so the West will be facing the East, vice versa. We're going to get to see it strictly like March Madness. It is going to be incredible. I'm excited because I think there might be I don't think there's going to be any giant upsets, but there might be some interesting hard matchups. Brooklyn Nets coming back. If Kevin Durant's healthy, the Brooklyn Nets now have Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and a pretty decent young team around them. That's an interesting play in these playoffs. The Pelicans are not a shove-over. The Pelicans are playing pretty decent. Zion Williamson is finally healthy. So you've got some interesting teams that are going to be able to make some noise, and it reminds me of that feeling of it's going to be, a Lakers versus the Nets, and that's, a Duke Lehigh ranking where it's, one versus the last seed in the tournament, but we all know what happened with Lehigh. Lehigh took out Duke. Now, I don't think that that's going to happen, but at the end of the day, it makes the NBA interesting. It makes the playoffs interesting. Especially during this whole Corona madness, we get to find some sort of balance between Eastern Conference, Western Conference, and making all of this interesting, which is what I like. I mean, if I'm being honest, as a giant NBA fan, I don't really start watching until I see teams that I kind of care about or till the NBA Finals. A lot of the playoff games are boring. You know it's going to be a sweep, so why do I want to watch Milwaukee blow out the Miami Heat by 25 every single night just in order to get Milwaukee versus the Lakers in the championship? So I really like the fact that they're intermixing it. They're making it interesting. There's a couple interesting matchups in the first round. And they're giving each team 8 play-in games, technically. So for the first seeds through the 4th seeds, it's not going to matter. You're already locked in. But for the close seeds, like the Memphis Grizzlies and the Pelicans, that's the difference between having to play a Milwaukee Bucks or a Los Angeles Clippers or Lakers in the first round, or being able to play, a second or third seed like a 76ers or a Boston Celtics in the first round. So they're giving them a little bit of a play-in. I like the fact that they're not coming out and giving them 22 regular season games, then trying to go into the playoffs. Look, you're going up against the beast that is the NFL and college football. You can't push your luck too far. October is probably the perfect timeline in order for the NBA playoffs to get the amount of eyes that they want. So we've got 8 regular season games. Then we're going to go straight into the playoffs, 22-team format. Here are the list of the teams that have made it per Adam Silver today. If I can get my laptop to pull up. Here we go. We've got the Los Angeles Lakers, the LA Clippers, the Denver Nuggets, Utah Jazz, the Thunder, Houston Rockets, the Mavericks, the Grizzlies, the Trailblazers, the Pelicans, the Kings, the Spurs, and the Phoenix Suns. Those are all from the Western Conference. So we've got 13 Western Conference teams. And then the Eastern Conference, we've got the Bucks, we've got the Raptors, we've got the Celtics, the Miami Heat, the Indiana Pacers, the 76ers, the Nets, the Magic, and the Washington Wizards. Basically, if any team even had a 0.1% chance of making the playoffs, that's who they brought to Orlando in order to compete for the play-in and then in order to compete in the playoffs. Which I like. What I like about that is they're giving teams that feel that they had a shot or that even had a minor shot, they're giving them that chance to prove themselves. And the teams that have absolutely no shot to make the playoffs stay at home. Nobody wants to watch you lose in 4 straight, in the NBA playoffs. So I really like the way that they did this. It's been getting a lot of flack, but I absolutely love it. So the biggest question mark that the NBA then had to answer was, what do we do with our top seeds to reward them for being top seeds? Usually in the playoffs, you get home court advantage, which of course you can't do that because the whole tournament, the whole playoffs, everything's going to be held down in Orlando. So they've given out a couple different options, and they've also maybe are going to add a couple different rule changes, and we're going to kind of lay that out right now. First and foremost, they said that the 1 seed will be able to pick their hotel first is one of the options. I don't really think that that's going to matter too much. They're going to be staying in the top hotels down in Orlando anyways. It's not like, the Mavericks are going to stay in the Super 8 motel, and then the Lakers are going to stay in the Four Seasons, So they're going to stay in top hotel rooms no matter what, so I really don't think that's too big of a deal. The one that I really like is they have proposed that every team that would have the home team advantage would be able to bring their court from their stadium, and they get to play on their home court. I think that is going to be better for the fans, too, because we'll be able to visually, keep in control of the playoffs, and we'll be able to understand, okay, they're in Game 3 because it's on the Lakers' home court, or they're in Game 4 because it's on the Nets' home court. So they've talked about bringing that court, and then that way they would be able to keep technically, in quotation marks, the home court advantage for the home teams. They would have more home games, of course. But I think that would be better visually for the fans and mentally for the players. Just being able to play on their own court, not necessarily their own arena, but their own court, would make a big difference, I think. And for the fans, it's going to help us when we're watching the games to be more engaged because we get to watch, it's technically a Lakers home game, and it's going to help our brains flip that switch, that barrier of having no fans and being in the playoffs and watching NBA games with no one there. So I love that idea. We also have seen that the top seed, no matter what happens at the tip, would then retain the first possession of the second, third, and fourth quarter, which is not a terrible idea, but I don't know that that's that big of an advantage for a number 1 seed. In the NBA, home court advantage is a huge deal. I think it's less so in the NFL. But the NBA, home court advantage is massive. Playing in your arena, you're used to your baskets, your fans. That means the world in the NBA. So I feel like that's just not enough stakes in the game to really help. Just because you get the first possession in the second, third, and fourth quarter doesn't really mean anything. If it was the last possession, okay, I get that. But the first possession, I really don't think is going to do much. But those are kind of the things that they're looking at for the number one seeds. And then they proposed a couple rule changes. Let's go over those. We've got dedicating one player on your team to get 7 fouls. Okay, NBA. In case you don't understand from my snickering, I don't really like that idea, and I really don't think it's going to be that helpful. So what? You go get one of your worst players on your bench, you give them the 7th foul so they can go out there and play bully ball. Big deal. Now the other team's shooting more free throws a lot quicker. It's not going to help. I do not like that rule idea at all. They also have talked about implementing a second coach's challenge. No? Heck no. First off, replays in the NFL and in the NBA at this point are completely pointless. We need to go get whoever the hell runs tennis. We need to go get that person and bring them to the NFL and the NBA. Because tennis can somehow get an incredible replay in 29 seconds. They're not even eclipsing 30 seconds. The fans are like, I wonder if that ball hit the line. They get a quick challenge, boom, we can tell if that ball's on the line. So, for whoever is running replay over in tennis, bring yourself over to the NBA and NFL, please. See, the thing with the NFL is the NFL, those referees are just too stubborn to admit that they're wrong, so they never overturn anything. Whereas in the NBA, I just honestly think that they're too clueless. I have watched many an NBA games where I'm flabbergasted at what they call. And the problem is what they need to do is put these referees as full-time, pay them a year-round salary, and make them go to classes in the off-season. Make them go, ref overseas for a couple months. Make them go ref AAU tournaments. Make them constantly working and constantly full-time. Then they're going to get better at their craft. They're going to get better at what they do. But when you just hire these people from whatever it is, September to July, and then they get to take a 5-month vacation, it's not helping anything. So, I hate the coaches challenge. It has not done well in the NBA so far. I think there's been 2 overturns this entire season. So I think it's pointless. I think it's dumb. The referees just need to be taught better. They need to be trained better, and they need to be paid full time, so that way they have the responsibility to be better. Let's see, another rule that was actually just posted, this was just sent to me. They are also doing a play-in tournament for an 8th seed and a 9th seed if the 9th seed is within 4 games. I love that idea. That definitely brings the NCAA spirit into it, because the 8th seed and the 9th seed, if they're within 4 games, it's a showdown as to who goes into the playoffs. I love that. Love that a lot. So final thoughts on this. This is basically all the information that we have been given up until this point. The second we get for sure details on start date, end date, and things of that nature, of course, I will bring that to you on the locker room. But final thoughts, I like it. It brings a sense of energy and a sense of excitement that I don't think we've had in the NBA playoffs or the NBA finals in a very long time. I love the fact that the 8th and 9th seed will play in if they're within a few games of each other, and they have to battle for that last playoff spot. It makes the regular season matter. I think that is the most important thing out of this whole thing. It makes the regular season matter. You get rewarded for being a top team, finally. Home court advantage, yes, is big in the NBA. But if you slack off for the first 45 games of the NBA and you rest like the Clippers have done, you rest and then you try and push towards the end, that's not going to fly in this new NBA playoff format if this is the way we keep doing it. Because if you're not part of those top 22 teams, or whatever the final number would be, then you don't make the playoffs. I don't care how well you finish, there's no opportunity for you to make those playoffs. So you have to make the regular season matter with this, and I think that's something that the NBA needs, because the regular season hasn't mattered for years. So I love that aspect of it. It brings the March Madness feel to the NBA. March Madness is one of the largest watched events, that and the Super Bowl, in the entire world. So